Another draft physics video presentation. Yeah, comments. What is there to say? I have glanced at them and the horror. So the whole, this need a new theme here or new something. Something has to change because this isn't working. This effort to communicate. The 60 symbols people, I left a link, a response video kind of link, and they deleted it. And it just seems kind of weak, their fear. To out of thousands of comments, to leave a comment that might be critical, just seems kind of desperately desperate, But anyway, the way of the world. I guess reasonable. What the hell is wrong with people in the sense that this idea of being somewhere in the pool of reasonable shouldn't be that difficult for people. And one of the first things to be reasonable about is how you can, what your expectations are. So I would argue that it wouldn't be reasonable for somebody to go to a concert or something, and there's a piano there, and they've never played the piano, and they just walk up and say, I want to do that, and I'm better than you, and just bang on the piano and pretend they're making music or something. You wouldn't say that's a reasonable person. They've done nothing to qualify themselves to know anything about the subject, and yet they have a firm belief that I'm a very good driver. You call those kind of people retarded. It's just the word you use. Dysfunctional at minimum. And, most people seem to fit in that category, but I guess it's not most. Most people just stay quiet and observe. And so the commenters are just the unreasonable portion of humanity who wishes to assert and claim when they've done nothing to make themselves competent to have an opinion. And so they have all kinds of wacky opinions, notions, and they're not based on anything that could be called evidence or good reasoning to acquire their belief. Their belief is just the byproduct of, I like the people who say that, and I don't like the people who say something different, or something like that. They're taller, or they're shorter. It's some stupid reason. It has to do with how comfortable they feel, or something. Some feeling they have, rather than any thinking they can do. So, so this just all seems very daunting, because they're just a bunch of people spouting crap, and it's all crap, and it's not based on anything real, like evidence and experiments or any of that kind of thing. And there seems to be no will to ever get to any of those things by most people. They don't want to really pick at the evidence, and because I guess it points in directions that they don't want to believe. They don't want to be stuck with as a belief. Anyway, so this gets to the whole fact of, it's like people. Well, anyway, let's just get to it. It's just discouraging. So, do a video on scientifically. I already done that. Been there, done that. I attempted communication with him. Obviously the first huge obstacle is he's a frickin' Christian nutter. All right, and he's going to pollute everything he does with his frickin' religion, because he's got to wear it on his sleeve. And like most religious people, and so that's obnoxious in the first place. I really don't want religious propaganda shoved into something called science. It's just rude, frankly, and it destroys all sense of notion that this person has any of these reasoning skills. If you're going to claim you believe in God, then you might as well just claim you believe in UFOs, or that reptilians have invaded, or you have some other wacky, silly nonsense theory for which there's absolutely zero evidence. You're just basically saying, don't listen to me because I'm a fucking idiot. That's the frank truth. So yes, I unsubscribed to Scientific Lee because he just got incessant, with this religious shit. And his science sucks. And he's impervious to correction. He doesn't fix his mistakes, and he doesn't interact in any kind of civil or decent manner. So what's the point? So, yeah, no, there's no point. I mean, it's an IQ test, religion. Sitting there just saying, how dumb are you? You know, I mean, even if you had some feeling inside that just compelled you to say, I just can't let go, I can't let go of it, I need it. Don't demonstrate you're an idiot. I mean, just keep it personal and private. You want to believe in wacky and silly things, don't assert them to the world. Ugh, it's just such a bad strategy. So anyway, so if you if you want to post me to a link to a particular video that you think has some good physics in it, fine. Okay, I'll go look at it. And if it's worth doing something about, I'll play it and do something about it. That's all good. And sometimes some of his experiments have some value. But I'm just saying overall, you know, there's so much garbage connected to it that's no point. And again, there's obvious things. You know, he'll assert he's demonstrated something and it's just shenanigans and tricks. It's like Ken Wheeler talking about how the light is being bent by the magnetism or something in the ferrocell. Some sort of complete horseshit. And again, they're impervious to having that corrected. So what's the point? So, no thank you. All right. And this raw nature person, I mean, you know, just start off with a bunch of assertions for which you can prove nothing or demonstrate nothing with a piece of evidence. It's just irritating. And it's not even written coherently. The first pointer of math can be directed in no other place than sentience. So this now math is some sort of magical thing. Math is just telling you how big something is, how fast something's moving. It's just the simplest thing in the world it could be. I mean, you're just basically identifying whether, you know, there's 2 trees over there or 4 trees over there, whether the trees are 10 feet across or 15 feet across, giving you descriptions of relationships between, well, if they're this far across and they're this high, then they have this much volume. And I mean, it couldn't be simpler in terms of the basic elemental description. But the universe isn't made out of math, retard. It's made out of physical realities. And there happens to be a reality that if an elephant falls on you or a mouse falls on you, there's going to be a different consequence because of the relationship. The very fact that the elephant is more massive. Not because it has a exact number of pounds to it. Okay, that's not dictating anything. You know, it's not a magical thing, idiot. It's not even a complicated thing. Math is about as simple as you can get. 2 plus 2 equals what we call 4ness. Why are you making it into a religion? Why are you doing this? I sit here and I say, what's wrong with these people? I mean, why do they have to mystify everything into mush? All right. Sentience. As sentience defines the capacity to mathematicalize reality from non-reality in the first place. I mean, that's just such nonsense. Math isn't going to tell you there's no UFOs. Logic is. Okay, logic about a lot of different kinds of facts that aren't mathematical facts. You know, it's just silly to think that the universe is a mathematical equation. It's not. It's a physical dynamic with things that actually move distances and things that actually have mass and things that actually have velocity. I mean, there are real components. Oh, shit. Our mathematical maps wrap around between internal and external definitions continuously. What the fuck could that crap mean? What? What does that mean? Because I find a relationship between a hill and the fact that things roll down it, and I can think about the fact that there's this thing called gravity, and that's the cause of the effect, but there's friction and there's different elements. What is about that is it requires a sentence like that. Thus, it's simultaneously self-referral mapping. Where do you get this jargon from? What the fuck could that mean to anybody rational? Self-referential. What the fuck does that crap mean? Oh, mapping and self-referential map. I mean, this is just so fucking stupid. Shit, there's events. Our brain stores events, that's all. And it makes associations. It makes associations between blue. I see the color blue and I say, oh, I can think of other things I've seen that are blue. It reminds me of them because I have a brain that's associating like things with like things. This is round, that's a lot of like, this is green, this is blue. What, it's almost the same color? I mean, that's all that's happening in our brains. There's no magic. Oh, God. Has to be in order to be internally consistent. Again, more nonsense. This is about your internal consistency. It's about the facts. The fact is the square peg doesn't go in round hole. The end. It's no more complicated than that. That's the problem with many theorizers. No, the problem with many commenters is they're irrational. They start from a blade of grass or whatever phenomena external to their internal observation and branch off from connection to connection, expecting to find a theory of everything, even though they've completely missed their own consciousness. Your consciousness didn't create the blade of grass, retard, and certainly no one logical says the universe in essence is grass. So, I mean, obviously the blade of grass isn't the beginning. Oh, shit. God, anyway. It has to be self-referential. No, it doesn't. What we observe with our senses gives us ideas continuously as mirrors, that's what it says, to our origins of sentience. To the origins of sentience, mirrors to the origins of sentience. What are you talking about? Our sentience is just a tool. It's a mechanical device, like the pincer on a like the stinger on a bee. It's a mechanical device. It serves a function. It makes us more adaptable as organisms. That's all. It's a tool. And the tool is kind of simple. It associates like things with like things. And therefore it can reward and punish us because of sensation. And so we can be rewarded for doing things that are conducive to the comfort and the function of the organism. And we can learn that other things are damaging and destructive and cause harm. And try to avoid them by recognizing them ahead of time. You fall off the cliff and you get all banged up and then you figure out, well, maybe I shouldn't do that again. That's it. It's not doing anything more complicated than that. Oh, I'm so tired of this shit. Anyway, it reaches theoretical completeness. Whatever. Or at least draft of some sorts. Or at least a draft of some sorts. So whatever. Oh, God, you're such an idiot. By the way, I've heard you don't believe in free will. Well, that's really not the subject of this video, but yeah, I don't believe in free, retard. Go show me some free somewhere. Go show me where this isn't this. It's free to be that. Is this free to be that? No, I guess it isn't. I mean, it's a stupid concept. Free from what? I learned 2 + 2 is 4. Am I free to believe it's 3 or 7 or 96? Oh, obviously I'm not free. So even if I had a will, whatever the fuck that would be, I would say I have a brain that can draw conclusions, that can know things. And when I know it, okay, yes, I'm free to what? Unknow it. No, I'm not free to unknow it until I'm presented with evidence indicating there's some reason to unknow it. So 2 + 2 is 4. I'm not free to make it 3. And I had to learn that it was 4. That's the process, asshole. There's no free. Oh, shit. Alright. But I'll recommend being open to the possibility. How do you even make the possibility? What besides an education informs your will? Magic? So I should just sit here and wait for the freeness to tell me how to solve Einstein's equations, for example. Like, almost nobody can really do Einstein's field equations. They're so complicated, have so many parts to them, even computers, give up. So I should just sit here and go, I'm free to do it. No, I'm not. Oh, God, these people. Anyway. For what it's worth, which is probably not much, of course, as you don't know me. Yeah, that's right. But I'm already getting an indication that you're just a wooer, okay? That you're just looking for fancy and fun answers. You don't want the fucking truth. Shit. It logically cannot exist within the consciousness capable of contemplating its existence. It logically cannot exist within a consciousness capable of contemplating its existence. In this sense, sentience and free will cannot be uncoupled. What are you even... This doesn't even make any sense. It cannot exist, but it can't be uncoupled. You're saying two contradictory things in these sentences. It's just hopelessly stupid people. There's nothing magical about your self-contemplation. You wouldn't have it if you didn't grow up in the modern world, okay? If you lived, 20,000 years ago, you would be so much more myopic in analyzing yourself and seeing yourself as part of a civilization and part of a big history of mankind on Earth and blah, blah, blah. You'd have no context to do any of this self-contemplation in any kind of rational manner. Ugh, it's so sickening. The main differential here is that, you waste these words, this mush. Differentiator here is that an organism's level of free will simply varies across the animal kingdom. Or where is that? Where is the will? Where do I see the lion behaving like a baboon? Or where do I see the monkey decide he's a slug and just slide across the ground, pretending to be a slug? This is just nonsense. Oh. Jesus. With human beings probably experience some of the greatest variation. Yeah, and it has nothing to do with being free. It has to do with being confined. It has to do with you talk Australian, good day and shit. If you grew up in Australia, where's the freedom in that? The American Indians didn't believe in Christ, They didn't have a Christian religion. Yeah, because nobody exposed them to it. No freedom there. Where's this freedom without learning or being exposed to something, without being conditioned by it? There's no freedom. You are trapped by your circumstances, what you are exposed to. Shit. And you've obviously been exposed to loop-de-doo, pussy-wussy little bullshit that's got you thinking there's something magical going on. You're a fucking parasite just roaming the earth like all the other parasites looking for some hamburgers. Cripes. Alright. Simply varies across the animal kingdom, and with human beings probably experiencing some of the greatest variation, where to the right of that they experience the greatest likely along with other animals like orca whales who measurably have significantly more brain cells than the average human. Yeah, well, again, you fell for nonsense, right? There's been nonsense statements made forever about what the real measurements are, right? So they do some stupid thing where they stick a probe in your brain, and if you don't go butterfly, you don't do anything. You just go ow. They say you're not using that piece of your brain, right? So they say we're only using 1/7 of our brain. Well, that's 1/7 of it has some connection to some other connection. The other rest of it's working stuff, and you just drilled a hole in it and broke it. So of course, its brain didn't do anything because you just broke part of it. So anyway, that was nonsense. We're obviously using all of our brains, but anyway, the size of your brain it's not a measure of your intelligence. The intelligence of an ant is insanely incredible. considering how minuscule the frickin' thing is, how maximized its function is. If I gave myself a trillion, I mean, it's probably a trillion ant brains would fit in my brain. You don't think I'd be mega much smarter if I was using ant brains instead of human neurons? Come on. This isn't about size, all right? It's about function. And we know that whatever, 200, 300,000 years ago, something happened to the human brain, and it was just a minor thing that happened. It gave up a little bit of its sensual function, in that we don't have a very good sense of smell. Which why would an organism lose its sense of smell in the sense of being less articulate? Well, maybe because the brain wanted to use that space to do something called vocabulary. And there was a trigger somewhere. Our brain didn't just go big all of a sudden. No, we got the capacity to do vocabulary. The vocabulary is the only thing that makes us different than the other mammals. That's it. If they went through the same process that we go through, which is a really slow maturation, the operating system is installed, okay, after you're born, where most organisms it has to be installed before they're born because they have to run away and they have to do all kinds of stuff really quick or they're going to get killed. But primates and especially humans, that process is lengthened so the brain can be ordered in a different way that's a little more efficient, and so now I can do this vocabulary thing. But vocabulary is the only difference. And if we do a few little chemical tricks on say primates, someday they're going to make a smart ape. And it's not because they're going to make its brain bigger. They're just going to make it so it can learn enough words. And once it learns enough words, it's going to talk, at least with sign language or something, and it's going to be, maybe it won't be as smart as us, it won't have a huge IQ, but it'll be able to learn, as we do, through symbolic representations, using language, using words as a way of saying blue. So blue isn't just the color blue as we see it. Blue is just a word that represents the color blue. It's the whole Helen Keller syndrome. I've already been through these conversations. Whatever. People are just too stupid. All right. Let's see. It would come to no surprise if their average IQ, for lack of a better term, was higher than our own. So again, it's just silly. IQ is a measurement of word association. It's measuring your capacity, your language, your vocabulary, you jerk. Your understanding of concepts that you can only be exposed to through vocabulary. Obviously, they're not going to do too well on most IQ tests. Stupid bastards. They're just swimming in water, of course, with little physical dexterity, so they have a ton of dexterity, but whatever. So they're kind of limited in terms of how their brains can develop, meaning our physical architecture, all beings, they have a biased structure trajectory to them in terms of how the brain computers perceives reality in the final outcomes. Yeah, again, this is just pitifully bad science. So you're not doing any rational science here. Some of the bigger brain thing has to do with the fact that they're doing, the sonar thing. They have to do different things. They have to have a different set of tools, and those tools require a different amount of brain space to accomplish the tasks. I mean, obviously, the absolute number of neurons is likely to have a lot to do with how capable an organism is going to be, not how much space they take up. You can have a little tiny human, Humans sometimes come out kind of short and small, and they have little brains. Doesn't mean they're dumber. All right, thanks, Gary. Keep making videos. It's great stuff. I appreciate learning from you. Well, I don't appreciate you just regurgitating a bunch of crap about magical functions, and that's all this was, is crap about magical functions. Sentience is not a magical function. It just creates an organism that can learn about its environment and adapt to it, instead of one that has a rigid programming and it can only react in one way. Nothing miraculous in it. Shit. So off the subject, too. So, Abdulia. Sorry, but I'm just so sick of foreigners. The Eddington experiment hasn't been replicated because it's been improved. All right. On by obtaining telescopes measuring deflection of light from distant stars, confirming GR's prediction. So why don't you provide me evidence of these better experiments? The better experiments aren't more exact. They're not using better photons or better something. They're using radio telescopes that are shooting energy, are catching energy through the corona of the sun, which is scattered. There's no evidence that gravity is causing the effect. There's every bit of evidence that some of the scatter will take the shorter path. I mean, this is almost, infants should be able to figure this one out. I mean, this is not gravity, okay? The sun has a whole bunch of energy around it. And it's not until you get almost more than a radius away from the sun that it starts to get, where there's a clear sky. It's not clear here, right? So they're saying, oh, look, there's energy coming from something over here, and it bends around here and comes to us. Yeah, well, when it goes through the corona, it goes here, 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 it goes here. It goes everywhere. So everywhere gets a piece of that little energy, a little glimpse that there's something over here behind the sun. Everywhere gets a piece of that. But it's not getting it because gravity bent it. It's getting it because it reflected off of the little bits of crap. I mean, that's not a complex argument. So why don't you show me the experiment that's not in the corona? Oh, you won't do that. Why don't you show me the evidence? So again, you didn't show any evidence. You just made assertions. Bullshit assertions. And again, it still doesn't explain why the Eddington experiment wasn't successfully repeated with all the other eclipses that happened on Earth since 1919. So why couldn't it even be repeated in all those times? And again, why wouldn't you use all the technology you have if you're saying it confirms the prediction of GR? Why don't you do that in a way that is undeniable? Why would you do it in ways that are completely deniable? That is, using experiments that are insanely complicated when you can do it with an experiment that's insanely simple. So why wouldn't you use the insanely simple method, which is video? Just take video of the object moving in two directions, because that's what it'll do. Why don't you just videotape it? Oh, that's right. Well, you can't videotape it because you have to have a time lapse. Well, yeah, well, you can still do that. Anyway, you're hopelessly stupid. So I did ask for links to your improved experiment, but nothing. So, yeah, I'm going to delete it. It's horse shit. I mean, it's just no point in making assertions without backing it up with a single thing that I can go look at and say, oh, yeah, that's a great piece of evidence. I've looked at all the other gravity, light, energy bending experiments, and none of them survived the simple argument of scatter. All right. Dude, yeah, fuck you. So again, somebody actually thinks that that's okay. That doing that dude thing, it makes sense. He'd walk up to somebody, and he thinks it's respectful to say dude to them. Yeah, right. Let it go. Fuck you. You obviously don't understand the most basic shit. Right? S-H-I-T? Yeah, that's what he said. And you're going to demonstrate that with what evidence? You're going to make what counter argument? Oh, that's absolutely nothing. I mean, I made hundreds of assertions about what the experiments actually show, and assertions about what reasonable conclusions can be deduced from those experiments and how they demonstrate that something can happen, like the gravity lens is the wrong shape. Do you have a counter argument to that simple argument? You can't magnify distant objects with a lens that's the wrong shape. No. All right. Quantum mechanics is way out of your league. Again, says you with absolutely no evidence. Just an arrogant, sitting fucking weasel. Another Kalam. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just having a day where I'm just so sick of, Jim, John, Jack, Fred, whatever. Just grow up, world. Get a real name. All right, cool. New crackpot channel. Can't have too many of these. So again, and you're demonstrating it with what? You're so weak, you can't make a single counter argument that's relevant to a single assertion made. Not a single one. And you're saying, oh yeah, I really did good. I sure proved that guy wrong. I mean, get what you deserve. I mean, realistically, I hope your whole family gets dismally shafted by people who just dismiss them like this. I hope you get that. Exactly that. Get what you deserve, you fucking piece of shit. Alright. Todd. Stupid little dog icon. I hate that shit. LOL, yes. Space is the squish mark of reality. No, it isn't. It's nothing. The after effect of exit. Exist? No. Exit. The stain of the perturbation and the other assorted stuff and things. Well, that is just too much of a pile of nothing. Shit. But have you heard her sing? Her music videos are truly unique. LOL. So again, you couldn't care to do anything physics, right? Oh, I posted this before completing the video. Well, then why not just delete your stupid comment? Obviously, you know about her music. Yeah, I just don't really care. It's kind of irrelevant. Who cares? And now that she's obviously just another one of those people, okay, who are incredible hypocrites. She'll criticize somebody else's science, maybe with some expectation that they might defend themselves and actually have a counter argument, but she won't accept the same criticism. So, hypocrite much. I don't know if I'll bother hiding you, but it's just useless fucking crap. People type something rational. LOL. I really hate that shit. I really can't remember the last time I enjoyed one of these monopolar debate type videos so much. I especially like the vegetarian photon section. Yeah, that was funny. And a bit at the end about all the good one could do with a vaporizing gun. Yes, and you're sort of evidence of the good I could do. I too have had the frustrating experience of being blocked by hypocritical cowards who claim that they welcome debate while quickly eliminating any who politely engage. Well, that's the difference. It's the polite engagement thing. I don't engage any of these people impolitely, and yet they block me, which is bullshit. I, for one, would very much enjoy. I mean, I offer them money. I say, just tell me what you want for an hour of your time. They can't even politely respond to that. I, for one, would very much enjoy watching an actual exchange of these ideas between you and the tattooed master of the rhetorically inscrutable. But I expect that your claim that your calm and thoroughly logical style would leave him drowning in a sea of his own obtuse contradictions. In any case, it might be quite entertaining. Well, I think it'll just illustrate that that's all he has is jargon. That he can't make a logical connection between his ether and the function. He'll just keep saying, it did it, by psi equals phi over pi over die. I will be devoting the next few hours to watching some of what you have to offer. I doubt that I will be disappointed. Have a great 2020, my friend. TNQ. I don't know what that means. But anyway. Whatever. Mush. Thank you. But still mush. Why does it do that? Let's see. Math is becoming the axiom of existence. I don't know if I'd say it that way, but whatever. Math isn't just numbers. Well, it pretty much is. It is literally all of the reasoning, as the true definition of math is the study of patterns. No, it's the study of relationships. It's not just patterns. It's relationships. This can be compared to that with a simple digit. You can get the net difference. But that's all. There's nothing magical about it. We cannot begin our reasoning about existence without axioms, as any statement made about reality requires a logical binding. Yeah, and you can do that by just explaining what it is. This is a long, thin thing. This is a heavy, shorter, stubbier thing. All right, and this I can make roll, this way, where this doesn't roll end over end very well or something. I mean, I can make comparisons. I can draw a picture of it. I don't have to have math. You can understand things by, you can draw a triangle and you can say, look, see, there's a length all the way around the triangle. And that has to do with how much area is inside of the triangle. Oh, shit. Anyway, where was this crap? Requires a logical binding. That logical binding is an axiom. Now, axioms are just premises, stated as these are the facts that you're going to mix in the bowl with the new facts you're going to add. But anyway, otherwise, I learned a lot from you, Gary. Thank you for your sharing over the years. Well, I mean, I'd like to say likewise, but I don't. What the fuck was that crap? Yeah, I didn't get it. Shit. Let's see. Gravity is most accurately described as a theory and not a force. Albert Einstein, 1915. So what? Albert Einstein was wrong. Okay, light isn't bent by gravity. Newsflash, it isn't. There is no time dimension. It's just silly. And the very idea of saying gravity's caused by space, it's not saying anything. Space makes it happen. Things move because space says so. Okay, so this is going to move because space told it to. I mean, it's a vacuous description of the function. It says absolutely nothing. Newton already gave us the inverse square law, and all Einstein did was say, I could draw it like this. I could draw it like that. So what? So Newton could have done that. And then he could have said, this? That's space bending. Yeah. I mean, Newton could have said that. And he would have gotten, laughed out of his high chair. Because it's just a bullshit, vacuous statement. It doesn't explain anything. Oh, fuck you. Amen. That's not a good way to start a sentence, my friend. What a great load of bullshit, and we're paying for it. Yeah, well, the paying for it thing, we should pay for things. So the fact is they're picking the wrong people to make things. And again, they're making them not because these things are good science. It's because we might be able to make a bomb out of it. And that's why they're making. And we might be able to listen to the Russians. We might have some advantage, militarily. That's why there is, whatever they are, those round things, and the atom smashers in the first place. All right, I'll just get rid of it because of the amen part. I don't like that. I mean, you typed it. You know what I mean? Saying amen now and then, or saying Jesus Christ, or when you're talking, it's one thing, but actually type it. I don't think I've ever typed Jesus Christ. Can you talk about physical constraints, constants, and what they exactly mean? I mean, this is just too stupid in a way. It means that everything it's when you get to elemental stuff, guess what? They all don't have a personality. Because they're not made of brains that grew up in Australia and ones that grew up in America. They're not. There's no diversity, so they're all come out of the thing exactly the same, like cyborg robot-y things. And the constant is that's the constant thing, is that all the pieces of chalk come out of the chalk factory, and they're all little pieces of chalk, and they're all the same little pieces of chalk. Well, that's what the elemental universe looks a lot like. It has things in it that are the same, and they're just on different paths in the universe, and that's it. That's their only difference. So it's just made out of elemental pieces, and the elemental pieces have properties, and those properties are what we call a constant, like the speed of light is the property that the stuff that bangs into things and gives them momentum, the things that bang into electrons and give electrons motion, those little bits all move the speed of light. So that's why it's a constant, because they all do it. They're all that. That's what they are, and that's what they do. It's a bit of a brain twister to me. So all the constants are either directly tieable to some function, like the force bits moving the speed of light, and the electrons having a certain mass, so when they get hit by one little bit of momentum, they move a certain amount, and that's another constant. Okay, so, but all of them are essentially based on the speed of the momentum. The fact that the momentum is in this form, so it has a speed and a mass, you could say the photon, and a capacity to exchange momentum. And all the other constants are just, in a sense, somehow related to that constant. All right. There's a, and it just has to do with the fact that the electron is also a stable thing, and the proton is a stable thing. So it just has to do with how force interacts with matter. And so sometimes those constants are just, well, what happens when it hits one piece and then hits another matter bit, and then we have a new constant, because there's always a constant relationship between those two interactions. There's absolutely no evidence for the electron particle. So it's just an insanely, bizarrely idiotic statement to say no evidence. Now, you want to say the evidence isn't complete. We don't have a videotape of electrons. Sure. Okay, but there's a ton of evidence that something negatively charged that behaves just like the proton, except it's negatively charged, exists. And you're just being silly. Plenty of evidence. In J.J. Thomson's cathode ray tube experiment, well, yes, the one experiment isn't necessarily proof of anything, but there's a ton of experiments. And, I would argue that the electrons aren't moving in J.J. Thomson's experiment. Clearly, an atmosphere, makes it travel better than no atmosphere. So clearly, it's preferential to have electrons connected to atoms. But anyway, we'll go further. The insanity of quantum mechanics was born out of the misconception of the nature of electricity and light. Well, quantum mechanics is clearly related to the idea of a wave function, and the idea that somehow things aren't real things in one thing place. The Heisenberg nonsense, the superposition nonsense is fundamental to quantum mechanics. So it's the idea that the wave is made out of a bunch of undefined locations, and that something's traveling as something in a bunch of undefined locations, and somehow it lands in just one of those locations. And somehow we're saying every individual particle does that, when no, the net behavior of 1 billion particles can look like that, but that's the net behavior of 1 billion soldiers. Anyway, the insanity of quantum mechanics is okay. So you're just making assertions. You're not going to prove them with anything. You're not going to link to anything that demonstrates your nonsense. You're just making assertions. UFOs are real. UFOs are real. Just proving that all the fake photos were fake doesn't prove that there are no real photos somewhere. It's such bullshit. Okay, this in turn led to Einstein's simplistic bumping particle interpretation of the photoelectric effect. So, it's an undeniable reality, okay? If you want to claim something, then you have to prove it with something. But I'm just saying the experiment was sort of points out that this stuff comes in clumps. Now, you want to say somehow you have an experiment proves it doesn't come in clumps? Anyway. And what is yours? So you don't like a simplistic bumping particle interpretation. You like what kind of interpretation? Wimpy waves? You're a little wimpy waver? Okay. And his invention of the proton particle. Einstein didn't invent that. Believing electrons were actually real entities. There's a real thing called charge, and you want to pretend you don't think that exists. Well, then you have to explain what the phenomena, how all the other experiments demonstrate its existence. And so, what are you accounting? How are you saying it happens? What's charge, then, idiot? This completely inverse relationship that happens. How do you explain the existence of that inverse relationship? Believing electrons were actually real entities. From this assumption, he introduced ridiculous wave-particle duality. He didn't introduce that. No, sorry. He was a very late conceder to it. And he only conceded to it because everybody was nagging him to concede to it. People are just so fucking stupid. By the way, the plus and the the pluses and the minuses, and he has to put a stupid frickin' icon in there. Can't you see how the whole concept of negative and positive charges is ridiculous? No, I don't see how it is. Now, clearly the idea that the charge, okay, the actual charge and the positive and the negative thing are two things that by themselves produce something. And then when you mix the two things, you get something new, like blue, red, and you can make purple. Now, those are three things that happen, right, out of the two things. And you can say that, you know, you could just say you could have a neutral thing, and you say, okay, purple is a mixture of blue and red, 50-50. And so it's kind of arbitrary. You can move over here, and you have blue-purple, and you move over here, and you have red-purple. So, yeah, plus and minus means it's a scale. And for voltage, we know that the ground is the thing defining the purple. It's defining the middle of the scale. Duh. Okay, anyway. Let's see. Charge is ridiculous, simplistic, and childish. So again, you're not proving any of this. You don't have any, you're not reasoning. You're not providing any reasoning why it's childish. When, yeah, I think the evidence indicates there's got to be something called charged particle. You don't have any mechanism other than saying one side is positive and the other side is negative. Well, I've certainly explained the mechanism. 2 + 2 + 2 physics. Two kinds of force, two kinds of charged bodies, electrons and protons, and two kinds of interactions. There, done. All right. Even the one fluid theory makes more sense than stupid electron BBs flowing through wires. So again, you haven't listened to my videos. I'm not saying they're flowing through the wires. I'm saying the pressure between them is pushing them through the wire. Some go through the wire. But even conventional physics will concede to you that the electrons are moving faster when the wires, when there's no electricity in the wire. They're doing more moving. So fuck you. Let's see. It's actually closer to reality. It's charge and discharge, not positive and negative. So how does charge and discharge make any sense? How do you make attraction and repulsion out of charge and discharge? Oh, well, anyway, you're not going to get any answers. Superior mind responded with something. Let's see what. That's an awful lot of response, frankly. I'd say there's quite a bit more to the history to these ideas. While I agree that the working model is in some ways a misrepresenting of what it does mechanically, we have a two-force type model. Okay, so you're saying that part. The dipoles can align when two dipoles of opposite charge reflection are facing each other. There becomes, well, there's no point in explaining it to him. He's making assertions that he doesn't have any evidence for. So what's the point just re-arguing the argument when he is impervious to it? He didn't argue my physics in the first place. In the second place, there's parts of conventional. I mean, I think electrons exist. Yeah. I mean, there's something charged. There's two opposite things that behave oppositely. And it's the only way it can work. That don't move the speed of light. Anyway. You know, Ken has no money despite owning 2 houses and buying thousands of dollars worth of photography gear so that he can review it for all of us. How could be such a bad guy? How could B be such a bad guy? Whatever. Yeah, I don't think that was terribly relevant. I mean, the point is he cries poverty and buys every year buys 20 grand worth of toys, at least. The stuff we get to see. I mean, it's 20 grand of toys we see. You know, who knows how much he's buying that we don't see. And he claims how poor he is. Yeah, it's kind of bullshit. So, anyway, irrelevant. Who cares? H. Thomas Ackerman. Feed them bullshit like we landed on the moon with the computing ability of a pocket calculator. But isn't that complicated, actually, right? I mean, gravity is kind of a reliable and simple force, and that's really all the damn thing needed to do was to know when to turn the engine off, when to turn the engine on. Yeah, not that demanding. All right. You need to begin your video with a little more clarity on consensual and non-consensual bullshit. What does that mean? And refrain from retarded generalizations. You need to go fuck yourself until you're dead. And refrain from retarded generalizations? Like what? Like the specific arguments I'm making? Shit. Isn't this an exercise we have all engaged in to establish truth? Truth? Question mark. So another guy who thinks it's too mysterious. You won't get there by means of ad hominem. And what the fuck is in your comment, you fucking idiot? You got this loop-de-doo fucking icon. God damn, how could these people be this irrational? Ken's analysis of Feynman's squirminess was spot on. I mean, obviously Feynman's squirminess was obvious to the entire universe. We didn't need Ken Wheeler to explain to us, oh, Feynman's rationalizing, and instead of just saying, well, we have this bullshit model that you're going to laugh at if I really tell you. But yeah, we have this thing called a virtual photon. And yeah, when the virtual photon goes away, it makes things come towards it. Yeah, it's kind of silly, blah, blah, blah. And Feynman didn't want to have to explain. It's kind of silly. And only if you're part of the religion can you understand why the Pope is wearing that silly hat, right? You have to be part of the religion to understand the silly hat and the little slippers and shit and how he's doing Jesus' work with his little silly hat. Because Jesus was really big on having silly hats. He thought that was the most important thing. I remember Jesus saying that all the time, Sermon on the Mount. Don't go, it doesn't matter if you got clothes. Don't worry about being naked. So what? Don't care. But make sure you have a really cool fucking hat. God, people are just so fucking stupid. You won't get there by means of ad hominem. Fuck you, fucking hypocrite piece of shit scum. Oh, man. Ken's analysis of... Oh, wait. Fuck you. I lasted 9 minutes on your word salad. Why I didn't last that long on your fucking bullshit. Your unaccountable, weak-ass crap, you fucking mystical fucking idiot. Fuck off. Someone explained to me the motivation of the big perturbator in the small pond. What the fuck does that kind of cry? Just don't bother with whatever satire shit you people want to do. Can you just make rational arguments, please? What book do you go see it written in? Yeah, I was asking, okay, this commensurability crap, point source commensurability. I was asking what book do I go to find out any context for that term except Ken Wheeler? And then he says, look in Ken Wheeler's book. No, I'm not looking for Ken Wheeler to say it again. I'm looking for somewhere where some rational person on earth bothered typing those words together. Point, source, incommensurability. Where is that a scientific term? Where does anyone who has gone to libraries and has read books and has any knowledge of the world, where does he go to find that jargon explained? Ugh. fucking asshole. So anyway, we just get rid of you. Fuck off. Ugh. To say that everything is magnetic explains nothing, and the most important questions of physics remain unanswered. Says you. You know, they're answered badly. Okay, yes, I'd argue there's people that have bad answers. But the answer is not going to be complicated. And I'm arguing that clearly most of these questions can be answered if somebody took a little bit of time to analyze the wrong assumptions that have been made hundreds of years ago. All right. Until one can show how it is possible for something which has no measurable size, an electron, quark, whatever it is that all things are composed of. So again, you're saying they have no measurable size. I mean, clearly, even conventional physics doesn't say that. They give them real mass. Okay, so you can argue, you know, the fact that they enjoy doing their mathematics by giving things no spatial identity is, you know, that's their math tricks. Okay, but the fact is they do have properties. Nothing can't have properties, so there are some things. Some of the properties they give them are bullshit, and they'll even say it, like spin. But anyway. So anyway, it's certainly not an assertion I'm making. I'm not saying photons don't have any mass. I'm not saying that electrons have no mass. So fuck you. Well, conventional physics isn't saying electrons have no mass, so fuck you again. Anyway, just, you know, you're bullshit liars. Electrons are analyzed, polarized, magnetized, or some other matter actually exists. The fundamental nature of the universe will remain unsolvable using the scientific method. So what kind of method do you think that we should use to solve it? The make up a bullshit story method? Totem poles? I mean, fuck you. The scientific method seems pretty reliable if you apply it. Okay, that is, you do experiments and you can draw conclusions. And the idea is you repeat the experiments. And the idea is you don't jump your evidence. You don't say, well, because chalk is white, frogs jump high. See, there's no connection between the white chalk and the frog jumping high. Fucking asshole. Just fuck off. Yeah, fuck off. Okay, maybe Ken Wheeler explains nothing and Tesla didn't do anything. So again, it's not my assertion that Tesla did nothing. The phase motor was a really interesting thing. It was really good. I don't know how practical, you know, in the real world, but certainly they had some use. But he didn't invent AC current. Okay, he didn't invent the AC generator. He didn't invent anything. Okay. That you're piling all this credit on him for doing. He didn't do that. That's the argument, jackass. But these assertions can also be seen as self-accusations, whatever that means. That is, you, like Ken, down in his basement, or Tesla sequestered in a New York hotel. So again, what is this? Where's the relevance of any of this horse shit? Explain and do nothing. So again, I mean, it's just such an obviously stupid statement for you to make. I explain everything. Tell me let me know what you want explained, and there's a video of mine explaining it. Go to the subject videos. Magnetism, the two-slit experiment, they're all there to be explained, and I've explained them with rational theories rather than irrational ones. Anyway, ironic though. I mean, unlike Tesla, you can find my drawings. Jeez. Though you rely on several of that do-nothing Tesla's inventions to get out your ad hominem attacks on word salad. Which one of Tesla's several inventions have I used? Name one, please. Oh yeah, that's right. You can't. I mean, the ceiling fan in the kitchen is the only one of Tesla's inventions in the house, as far as I know. Here is the bottom line on science. While it might be one day explain precisely how everything works, it has not, and most likely cannot, tell us what everything is made of, other than to say that all matter consists of immeasurably small bits of nothing. Well, obviously the smallest thing is going to be immeasurable, but you don't have any way to measure the small thing. You know, it's too small to be measured. You can't make a a device that can get past the limitations of the only way you can see something is to bounce something off of it. And you can't bounce something bigger off something smaller and expect to see it. So obviously we'll never see the things, but yes, rational people can do rational deduction. And you're not one of them. Fuck off. Anyway, so I take a chewable gummy. Well, that's not very interesting. Alright, so we already did that, right? Yeah, okay. Every day, and my energy levels are much better. Well, whatever, fine. I don't, I mean, I guess it was sort of barely mentioned in the video, so I guess I'll let you get away with that, but it's bullshit. Laughing, I don't know, mega out loud, I don't know, after 18 minutes, idiots run the globe. No, that's all there are. The globe is infested with human bacteria, brainless bacteria called human. Alright, program smart callers. I don't know what that could mean. I'll just get rid of it because it's too fucking useless. He had enough of him. LOL. Whatever. That kind of commentary is useless. I really like this video, thanks. Well, that's kind of useless too, but we'll leave it. What do you think of Glenn Borkert? Oh, good, we did that one, so we're done. Oh, that was just no fun at all. See if there's any new comments. New and improved one. Alright, no, okay. Alright, so I guess that's it. And so, until next time, this was rather kind of a useless interaction. And, but that's the price you pay for interacting. So anyway, back to the physics next time. Physics, all physics and nothing but physics. So, till then.